have to admit something right up front. I opened my social media this morning, just, scrolling while waiting for coffee.
The doom scroll.
The doom scroll. And I swear, every third post was this beautiful pastel infographic telling me to honor my stillness, or sit with my trauma, or prioritize my healing journey. And honestly, it felt nice.
It's seductive, isn't it? It's a very warm blanket.
It is, because we're all tired. We are all a little burnt out. So when the world tells you, hey, you're broken and your only job right now is to fix yourself, it feels like permission to finally exhale. Healing is just everywhere. Bestseller lists, corporate emails, even just brunch conversation. I mean, who could possibly be against healing?
Well, that's where things get interesting, because today we are looking at a stack of sources that argue this whole modern obsession with healing. It might actually be a trap.
A trap. See, that's where I get skeptical. How can trying to get better be a trap? That sounds completely counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it? But we're going to look at this through the lens of Stoic philosophy. We're talking guys like Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus.
Okay.
And the argument they make, the argument our source material makes using their philosophy, is that what we call healing today often isn't about recovery at all. It's about what they call distorted healing.
Distorted healing. Okay.
Yeah, it's this idea that instead of helping us stand firm, this culture of constant healing is actually giving us a permission slip to just shrink away from life. It's making us fragile.
Okay, that is a heavy accusation, and I have to play devil's advocate here because I know people who are genuinely struggling, people dealing with real trauma, real loss. If the Stoics are just saying, suck it up and stop whining, that feels incredibly harsh.
It doesn't.
It feels like toxic masculinity wrapped in a toga.
That is a completely fair reaction, and I want to be super clear before we dive in. The source draws a big line between clinical recovery and, let's call it, cultural healing. If you have a broken leg, you go to a doctor.
Right.
If you have clinical depression, you need medical help. The Stoics weren't anti-medicine. But what they are criticizing, and this is what we're unpacking today, is healing as a lifestyle, as a permanent identity that sort of exempts you from the world.
Got it. So we're separating I need medical help from I'm in my healing era.
Exactly. And to understand why the Stoics are so hard on this, you have to look at their context, because it's so vastly different from ours.
Right. I think we tend to picture these guys as, old men in marble halls writing philosophy while eating grapes.
Yeah, far from it. Take Marcus Aurelius. He wrote Meditations, which is basically the Bible of Stoicism, while he was on the frozen Danube frontier leading a war.
Wow.
He was surrounded by death. He was likely coughing up blood himself because the Antonine Plague was ravaging the Roman Empire, killing millions of people.
So when he talks about suffering, he's not speaking theoretically.
No, not at all. He's speaking from the epicenter of a catastrophe. In the ancient world, suffering wasn't some interruption to life. It was the baseline texture of life.
Right.
You had war, you had plague, zero antibiotics. If you had a toothache, you might actually die.
So the question back then wasn't, how do I make this stop so I can get back to being happy?
Right. The question was, how do I live correctly while this is happening? The Stoics were writing manuals for endurance, not for escape. But today, the source argues, we've made this fundamental shift. We've moved from endurance to elimination.
Elimination of pain.
Yes. We've medicalized normal human emotion. If you're sad, if you're uncomfortable, if you're anxious, modern culture treats it like a system error. It's a disease that needs to be eliminated immediately.
And because we see pain as a mistake.
The market steps in. It offers healing as the product to fix it.
That's the commodification part the source talks about. Buy this retreat, download this app, read this book, and you will reach the promised land of zero pain.
Exactly. And that is where the Stoic steps in and says, wait a minute. Seneca has this warning. He says, not all pain needs to be soothed immediately.
Which goes against every instinct I have. If I touch a hot stove, I want to put my hand in cold water.
Physically, yes, of course. But emotionally, Seneca's point is that if we assume all discomfort is wrong, we lose the ability to distinguish between necessary pain, the kind that leads to growth, and, actual damage.
Like at the gym.
Think about it like the gym. If you stopped lifting weights the second your muscles felt resistance, you'd never get stronger. You'd equate effort with injury.
So we're losing our tolerance for the friction of life.
We are, and Epictetus makes a crucial distinction here. He separates what hurts from what causes misery.
Okay, unpack that for me.
So, let's say you lose your job. That is the circumstance. That hurts. It is objectively a difficult situation, but the misery, the spiraling, the collapse that comes from the judgment you attach to
It's
it.
a story you tell yourself.
The story, I'm a failure, my life is over, I can't handle this.
The narrative we spin around the event.
Precisely. And modern healing culture often tries to soothe the feeling, the hurt, without ever challenging the judgment. It gives you a bath bomb and tells you to take a mental health day. But if you don't challenge that core judgment, I am a failure, you aren't building strength.
You're just learning to be comforted.
You're building a dependency on soothing.
And this leads to a concept in the source that really, it hit me hard, the suspension trap.
Yeah.
This idea that healing becomes a waiting room.
The waiting room. That is a perfect metaphor.
It's this feeling of, I am not okay yet, therefore I am not responsible yet. And I feel like I see this all the time. People putting their lives on hold because they just aren't ready.
It's a dangerous limbo. The source describes it as a social mechanism where we convince ourselves that life hasn't actually started yet.
Great.
We tell ourselves, I'm in beta testing right now. Once I fix this trauma, once I get over this burnout, then the real version of me will launch.
Then I'll make the hard decisions. Then I'll set the boundaries.
But the Stoic reality check is that the clock is ticking the whole time. The waiting room is the life. That's the terrifying part.
Oh, wow.
Epictetus argues that yes, the past influences us. You might have trauma, you might be tired, but that influence doesn't remove the obligation to act now. Life doesn't wait for you to feel ready.
It's like waiting for all the traffic lights in the city to turn green before you leave your driveway. You will never leave the house.
Exactly. And there is a harsh truth here that the source brings up. By prioritizing our emotions, waiting until we feel good to do good, we lose our ability to stand firm. Marcus Aurelius has this tough love approach where he basically says, do what needs to be done, even if the mind doesn't want to.
See, that's the part that sounds like oppression to me. Ignore your feelings and get back to work. Isn't that how we get burnout in the first place?
That's the common pushback. And the source clarifies that Stoicism isn't about repression. Repression is pretending the feeling isn't there. I'm not sad, I'm fine. That's just lying.
Okay.
Stoicism is about distinguishing between the feeling and the duty.
So acknowledging the sadness, but doing the job anyway.
Right, you can feel scared and still do the brave thing.
Yeah.
You can feel exhausted and still do the necessary thing. This distorted healing culture suggests that the emotion is a stop sign. I feel anxious, therefore I cannot do this. The Stoic treats the emotion like bad weather. It's raining, I wish it wasn't raining, but I still have to walk to work.
That's a helpful shift. It's not denying the rain, it's just not letting the rain dictate the schedule.
Exactly. But if we stay in that waiting room too long, if we treat healing as the ultimate goal, it starts to warp our identity. And this is the next big danger the source highlights.
Okay.
The shift from I am in pain to I am a traumatized person.
Pain shifting from an event to an identity.
And once it becomes your identity, you start to protect it. You start to use what the source calls the exemption card.
Oof, the exemption card. I have to be honest, when I read this part, I squirmed a little because I played this card.
I think we all have.
I've definitely used, I'm having a really hard week to get out of things I just didn't want to do.
It's human nature. Seneca warned about this centuries ago. He said, humans fall in love with things that grant them exemption. If I am wounded, if I am healing, I am suddenly exempt from expectations. I'm exempt from judgment.
It becomes a forbidden zone. No one can criticize me because I'm going through something.
It's the ultimate defense mechanism. You can't be mad at me, I'm healing. And here's the hardest pill to swallow from the source. This distorted healing can become unconsciously selfish.
Selfish, that seems harsh. We're usually told self-care is selfless because you can't pour from an empty cup.
That's the slogan. But the source argues that when you focus entirely on your own pain, on your own process, you often ignore the burden you're shifting onto others. Marcus Aurelius talks constantly about community. He says, we are born to do our part. If a person constantly says, I'm not okay, I need to step back, they rarely ask the follow-up question. Who is carrying the load I just dropped?
That is a heavy question. If I check out of life to heal, someone else is checking in to cover for me.
And by labeling every discomfort as toxic or a trigger that has to be avoided, we avoid the very friction that is necessary for maturity. We don't grow in a vacuum. We grow by bumping up against the world.
The source gives some really concrete, almost uncomfortable examples of this, and I think we need to walk through these because they make it very real. The first one is in the workplace.
Right, we've all seen this scenario. Picture this. You're on a team, A deadline is looming, the pressure is on, and suddenly a colleague sends a Slack message saying, I'm prioritizing my peace today, so I won't be checking emails.
Oh, yeah.
Or, I don't have the capacity for this meeting right now.
And it uses all the right words. It uses the unimpeachable language of therapy, boundaries, capacity, peace. You can't argue with it without looking like a monster.
Exactly. It weaponizes therapy language. Now, initially, boundaries are good, but the source describes when this becomes a permanent retreat. The practical result is that you are now doing their job and your job.
Right.
They are using the language of wellness to validate a lack of responsibility.
It's using boundaries as a fancy way of saying, I don't want to do the hard stuff.
And the second example is even trickier. Personal relationships. Conflict arises. Maybe you're trying to resolve something difficult with a partner or a friend, and one person just shuts down the conversation by saying, I'm not safe enough to discuss this, or I'm being triggered.
Yeah, that's a conversation stopper. Game over.
It's a checkmate. And that's why the source and Seneca view it as a form of power. It's a power move. The wounded person controls the pace. The other person is held hostage by the fear of being labeled abusive or insensitive.
They're using weakness as a form of unconscious control.
That is a fascinating flip. We usually think of the wounded person as the powerless one. But in this dynamic, the wound is the weapon. It's a shield against life.
So in both cases, work and relationships, healing isn't a pass back to engagement. It's a shield against engagement.
It keeps the person in a loop of self-analysis rather than action.
So we've diagnosed the problem. We're stuck in a loop of soothing. We're using healing as an exemption card, and we're drifting away from responsibility. But I don't want to leave people feeling like they just have to suffer in silence. What is the Stoic alternative? Because if they aren't saying just suppress it, what are they saying?
They are advocating for what we might call internal sovereignty.
Sovereignty, that's a strong word. What does that look like practically?
Okay, think of your mind like a fortress. The Stoics call this the inner citadel. Outside the walls, there's chaos, people yelling, bad weather, bad luck, tragedy.
Right.
That's layer one pain.
That's stuff we can't control.
Exactly. Layer one is the inevitable stuff. Loss, sickness, grief, the Stoics say. Acknowledge it. Don't pretend it's not there. Cry if you need to cry.
Okay.
But then there is layer two. This is the suffering caused by our interpretation. The narrative that says, I can't survive this, or this shouldn't be happening to me. This is where the Stoic intervenes.
This is where internal sovereignty comes in.
Yes. You are the king or queen inside the fortress. You decide if you open the gates and let that chaos take over the throne room. You can hear the noise without letting it rule the kingdom.
So instead of asking, how do I stop hurting?
The Stoic asks, is this hurting my character?
Is this hurting my character? That is a massive shift in perspective.
It changes everything.
Yeah.
Because you can be sad, profoundly sad, but still keep your promises. That means your character is intact. You can be hurt, offended, or tired, but still fulfill your duties.
It separates your emotional state from your moral standing.
Exactly. And the hard truth the source delivers here is that pain does not grant a leave of absence from morality. You don't get to be cruel just because you're hurting. You don't get to be unreliable just because you're healing.
Character over comfort.
That's the motto. The goal isn't a world without pain. That's a fantasy. The goal is a person who can walk through pain without breaking and without retreating.
It's about being anti-fragile almost, not just resisting the break, but being able to function within the mess.
Functioning within the mess is the definition of a Stoic life. The source emphasizes that true healing is preparation. It's not a permanent vacation from reality. It is the pit stop you take so you can get back on the track.
So if we look at the big picture here, distorted healing asks, am I safe?
While Stoicism asks, am I being true to my character?
That's the fundamental contrast.
It is. Modern culture encourages us to stay with our emotions until they pass, to pamper them. Stoicism encourages us to act correctly despite the emotions.
And I think that's what makes this take so refreshing, even if it is a little bit of a slap in the face. It reminds us that we are part of a whole. We aren't just little islands of feelings floating around. We have jobs to do. We have people depending on us.
We do. And honestly, there's a deep dignity in that. There's dignity in saying, I am hurting, but I am still here. I'm still showing up. Stepping back into that flow of life, even when you're limping a little, is actually how you get stronger.
Right.
You don't get strong in the safety of the exemption zone. You get strong by carrying the load.
It's a powerful call to action. It's not saying don't heal. It's saying heal so you can live.
Heal so you can serve. Heal so you can return.
Before we wrap up this deep dive, there was one final thought from the source material that really stuck with me. It's a question, and I think it's the perfect thing to leave everyone with today to chew on.
It's the ultimate test of your mindset when things get hard. The source asks, when pain appears, do you want to use it to understand what is within your control, or do you want to use it to petition for an exemption from the life you belong to?
That is one to sit with. Are you using your pain as a tool for wisdom or a permission slip for checking out? Thank you for listening to this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.